Electric shock therapy, Jose. What you got on that?
So it's an article that I stumbled upon this week, just reading here and there for Twitter's sake. And it's essentially the school wins a legal battle for electric shock. So there's one place specifically in the States that allows it, but the FDA essentially wanted to stop these treatments. However, it was rejected. So what is happening? It's they're not really calling it electroshock. They have a fancier word, which is electroconvulsive therapy. It's for those that need specific treatment when medication has totally failed, therapy has failed, where there's severe psychiatric symptoms. I guess this is used in order to help said individual. Now, this place, it's called the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center. It's in Massachusetts, and you can check out their website. And I was just really shocked to hear that this is still happening in this day and age, only to be proven, as I'm reading along, that it exists even in my city. Right? So somewhere in my city, seriously,
No way.
there are quite a few establishments throughout Canada, actually. We kind of embraced this back in the 80s. So my question to you, to my fellow hosts is, did you know that this was still going on? Do you believe in this? You know, or do you think this is something that should be made away with? You know, for me, I feel it's somewhat archaic. However, what say you, Robbie?
Well, I had to really educate myself a little bit because anything I know about electroshock is merely from pop media, pop culture references. I really don't know much about it. And there's a lot of stigmas that are attached to it because of how it's portrayed. So when I went diving into it, I actually found a really nice write-up from the Mayo Clinic, which is a very reputable organization. And I guess now, when we see it in movies, we see someone strapped to the bed in restraints and just given her. Oh, that's not really the way that it goes because these treatments are done under sedation, under anesthetic, and that's to help protect the person that's undergoing the treatment. That's to help protect the people who, because when it was used previously, when it was first started being used, then yeah, people weren't under the anesthetic, so that would result in a lot of injury to the patients, broken bones and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm not a brain physiologist. So whether or not the treatments work, I don't know. But I do know that it's only used for radical treatment for severe depression, treatment-resistant depression, severe mania, catatonia, agitation, and aggression in people with dementia, which can be really difficult to treat and really negatively impact that person and their family's life. So to hear that it's happening under a medical guise doesn't surprise me at all. Whether or not it's being used irresponsibly or in a punitive way, that would be something completely different. But from what I've read for medical application, I'm okay with this.
Let me ask you, being a dad,
Yeah.
I mean, you have kids. And what if your kids were so severely, psychologically damaged? Would this be a route that you would have taken if it was ever introduced to you?
I guess that would have been a long conversation over months and years with healthcare teams, and because before going to something radical like that, I would have explored any therapy, treatment, counseling, medication. Because yeah, I mean, running electricity through your kid isn't the first thing you think of for correction, unless maybe, I don't know, maybe an electric cattle prod would have come in handy every now and then, just straight and narrow.
Oh my God.
I mean, kids are kids, yeah, for sure, or we can even ask Lizzie, if you had such issues, would you even consider a treatment for yourself?
I don't think I would. Um, I just, like you said, Jose, I find it to be very archaic. When I read this story, I was someone who was shocked that this was still a thing. Like in my head, this was something that happened in like the 40s and the 50s, and kind of dismantled in the 60s and 70s. Like Rob B said, like my only experience with this topic is through movies, seeing it in movies and seeing it in TV shows. I think the last time I saw it in a TV show was on Showtime's Homeland, when the main character Carrie, she was bipolar, and so she agreed to electroshock treatments to kind of get her back on track, if you will. But I'm someone who, I have a DNR. Okay, I have a do not
Okay.
resuscitate order in my medical history,
Yeah.
and so I don't want all of this treatment just to
Mm-hmm.
keep me alive, or just to, I certainly don't want to be shocked, have electricity, go through my body. But also, I don't know enough about how this aids people. Like, how does this um, fix, if you will, for lack of a better term, fix whatever problem is on the table with these kids, or with people who have disabilities, who are having issues. I just don't know, like, what is the expectation after the shock treatment? What's it supposed to do for you? And I don't think, if you haven't been shocked, if you haven't experienced the treatment, then it's easy for you to say, yeah, I would consider it for my kid or whatever. But you haven't felt those volts going through your body, going through your
Mm-hmm.
brain. So it's very scary to me. It's very scary. Um, I would not approve of it for myself. Like, if I am foregone, okay, well then we are going to work through a way where I can just live my days peacefully, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would want to do it to my kid, especially if it's a young kid who, still has a lot of developing, maturing going. But then on the flip side, we know that there are some kids who are psychologically in a lot of distress and peril. And so that's why I don't know. Like, I really don't know. It's a very tough subject, but it's a subject. It's an article, Jose, that taught me something, because again, I had no idea this was still going on.
I
I had no,
honestly thought it was illegal.
yeah, I had no idea this was still going on. And like you said, you found out that it was still legal in Canada. I wonder, like, worldwide, like, what are
Oh,
procedures,
probably.
the legalities with this, because we know not everything is kosher when you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about, governments, when you're talking about institutions. There's a lot of abuse and neglect that
Yes.
Yeah.
goes on. So that
Yeah.
concerns me too. Um, so yeah, but it scares me. It scares me. It really does. It
Yeah.
really does.
You said
I've
one
actually heard
interesting
about.
thing, Liz, where you said, if you haven't felt it yourself, because I know that when I got just a bark collar for my dog, well, you better believe that I strapped that puppy on my throat and gave it a try before I put it on my puppers, because I wanted to know what
Oh,
they were going to do, what they were going to get, and it was like, okay, this is tolerable. So, you know, that would definitely be something I would want to do before
Nice.
subjecting my child to it. Absolutely, that would be part of that conversation.
That is a good point. Yeah. I was gonna say, when it came to how you guys mentioned you only really heard of this through pop culture. I remember hearing about this subject in like some college courses, like in psychology courses, because they talked about different treatments and things. Especially, I've heard it for major depression, and manic. I think it's manic depression. I don't know, but I've actually remember my mother was majorly depressed. I remember her doctor offered her that as an option. And we did live near Massachusetts. I'm from Rhode Island, so we lived near Mass at the time. So it was, I wonder, I don't know, but it was still an option when I was very young. So this must have been something recent. But my thoughts on it, I think that it is barbaric or archaic, how you guys say it, and I think that it But with people who want to be hypnotized and like things like that, like alternative taboo things,
Mm-hmm.
if you choose to be shocked, I can understand why. because we're made of electricity, supposedly. So I can see how that could somehow be of help, but I don't know if they should it should be done on children because children are very like their brains at that time aren't even fully developed. So I would never do it for children. But if somebody who is majorly depressed and they're like, this is my only option, I don't know what else to do. I'm just suicidal. Then I could understand wanting to go to that measure. I would never do it for children ever. And even the
I
people in that article, Joe, they were complaining, like children were complaining about how they didn't want it done and it was painful.
I
yeah, and
mean,
see
if you
that's
look at how do you feel after, like, I mean, I've never received a shock in my life, right? So I can imagine it doesn't feel right. And when I was reading some of the articles, it was saying, most of the time people will lose their memory due to this, like as
My
a side
God.
effect. I have a friend many years ago had a family member that was, majorly addicted to alcohol, right? And so they tried everything. They tried the pills, the therapy, talking to a counselor, did not happen. And this person opted to get this treatment. Now that's all fine and dandy, but the success rate, they're right back where they started. Right. So there is that chance as well. And they say it's not just one treatment that's going to cure you,
yeah, it's
it's
several.
It's
many.
Yeah.
So
prolonged.
what is that
Several.
doing?
Trying your
Right. So, Daria Winter mentioned online that she thought that this therapy was banned. I would ask to follow the money. Mayo Clinic precautions may not obtain all places. How is it used to be monitored? Who uses it and how? And that's the thing is that can you just go to any doctor's office and, hey, I'm not feeling myself today? Just like I said, I Googled this, I'm checking out, and there's some in my city. That was shocking to me that I can just
Or,
walk into
yeah.
an office.
or the
Uh,
how, hey Genji, or the how in terms of who is being administered the shock treatment the most. Which group? Because you have, I mean, I'm not sure how, what the laws are or how things are done in Canada, but in the States, we hear far too often how usually the poor folks are the
Yeah.
guinea pigs, how
And
usually
that's
the
it,
person
right?
of colors
Yeah.
are the person of color are the guinea pigs. They're the ones
and
that,
that's
are
true.
receiving this and
Hmm.
receiving it in terms of being abused by it. And so that's what concerns me. And so, my sister is, in the chat watching the show, other friends or whatever. Listen, I am not going to agree to this ever. Do not shock me. Do not think I want to be shocked. We can come up like send me to a log cabin and just let me be. I
Hmm.
do not want, and I think hopefully people, especially adults, but also children, because like you just said, children are saying they don't want it. Hopefully, as it's still a thing, as it's still being administered, there is an option for the patient to say, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
want this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consent.
For sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm
No,
sorry. Thank you,
thank you for
Jose.
everyone. Thank you for sharing.
So how are we all
Is
feeling
it
about this
truth
one?
lies? Hmm.
It's
I
an
think it's
unfortunate
Um.
truth.
It is an unfortunate truth, like a
Yeah.
harsh truth again, it's that this is
Dark
being,
truth.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Dark
so
truth.
it's
Yeah.
Dark
just one more
truth.
thing we need to monitor and govern ourselves accordingly about, like, make ourselves aware. We often think about um overly treating people via drugs, right? But this is
Hmm.
another iteration of that idea. So it's definitely
Yeah.
something that we need to think out and research. So thank
Yeah.
you for
That's
that,
interesting.
Jessica.
Thank you, Joe.
For that.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, so